Hello, dear viewers. Welcome to another episode of Dmtsi Ertrawyan. This is our first episode for 2024. Although we're a few weeks into January, we'd like to wish you a happy new year. We're happy to be back to discuss some of the current issues while also reflecting back on the last year and what this has meant towards our community. Uh, my name is Rahel Waldab.
And I'm Nathaniel Emanuel.
And so we're going to just have a casual conversation about certain developments. And if you have any comments or questions for us so that we can include in our next episode, make sure to put it into the comments. Also, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now we were having a conversation before we started recording, and I thought we would just continue on the show. We had quite an interesting conversation about the events last year, and then and how it mirrored or reflected on the years before that, and how that has kind of impacted us as Eritreans, both within the country, both and abroad. Um, and we were having a discussion about how in the past couple of years the impact of social media and how that has affected a lot of our youth, our community, and one of the big things that especially happened here in Sweden last year was one of the attacks on our community events, our local parties, even national holidays, and how that has kind of been skewed in different ways, how it has kind of impacted local policies towards the Eritrean community, and especially against Eritrean youth. As one of the pillars of Eritrean community and society is its collectivism. Its way of coming together, showing appreciation for its unity, its culture, and especially its national holidays. And what we've seen in the past couple of years, and especially last year, is how violent, what are you gonna call it, events, or attacks have impacted our community, and how it's kind of slowly been wrongly talked about in media, both in Sweden, but also on the international level. And we've kind of seen also the media play a huge role in putting more fuel to the flame, you can say, and impacting the Eritrean youth who kind of been put on this misguided youth path, you can say, especially on social media. How social media has kind of been pushed and a lot of people have taken advantages on this these situations. As you well know, even within our rights to have events, it's been publicized on social media wrongfully, and definitely been stirring emotions both within the community and outside. And it's one of those things that's kind of been the highlight of last year, I would say.
Yeah, when I was reflecting on, um, especially the attack on the festival Eritrea, Scandinavia in Stockholm. I was there when it happened, and also like the preceding events, the events that happened after that, and then also what kind of triggered it. It was the I think the trigger really came out because of the festival before that. There was a record number of Eritreans who participated in that, especially on the first day. Usually, the festival is opened on a Thursday afternoon, and not so many people uh, usually show up.
Yeah.
Is it Thursday or Friday afternoon? Sorry. Yes, Thursday afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but then a couple of years ago, it was a record number. We had some very popular artists come from Eritrea at the time, and I think that triggered a lot of people into just seeing how many young people. That's exactly what they saw. They saw many young people participate in this in record numbers, and that triggered them to then have this, this kind of conservative backlash towards the festival. They've used social media, especially TikTok, um, uh, uh, to basically radicalize people into thinking that had they have a right um, uh, to invoke violence.
Yeah.
Basically, that what they were doing was justified. And the reason why that, if we then look at okay, how did this type of you know attempts to delegitimize the Eritrean community and communities in the diaspora? It happened on a world scale. How did that come? It came because there were various actors who had consistently spread disinformation, misinformation about Eritrea, about Eritreans, about their role within their diaspora communities and how they can or cannot contribute to any type of development back home. Also, in regards to just certain opinions that we tend to have as Eritreans, right? Understanding that we come from a very volatile region in the world, the Horn of Africa, we do have certain principles and values that do not, uh, uh, coincide with what you might call neo-colonial, neo-imperialist ambitions, right? The calls to, for solidarity between African countries, saying Africa challenges need to be solved by Africans, African solutions to African problems. These type of stances has been used against us. Even the principle of self-reliance, you know, how dare the Eritreans talk about self-reliance when they're such a poor country, or they're always this ideas of that Eritrea has a small country, it has a small population, and all these type of things. And it's because these type of narratives that we adhere to does not comply with other narratives, especially those that that are in cahoots with more imperial, neo-colonial type of ambitions, more capitalistic ambitions, yeah, for more individualistic society, right? The fact that Eritreans or any African community, for that matter, would unify behind the development of its people, the progress of its people, and also doing this without, seeking immediate help or resources from Western societies or communities, that it goes against the grain of what you know um, yeah, what we stand for and what they want, not just us but Africans do in general. There's a clash between those type of narratives. So yeah, I think that we can go talk about this for a long time, but it really stems from all these clashes of narratives and principles that tries to set um, Black people of African descent, in a place where they are only expected to comply to their own exploitation, to keep quiet when their identity, uh, their agency is being questioned.
Yeah. Because it's quite interesting when you say, African problems, African solutions. But one thing that's quite stood out to me, which is it's a similar tactic that I've seen before, is when someone tells you that you might not identify as a problem, but tells you you have a problem, and they give you a problem, or they make you think that you have a problem. And as you said, there's the neocolonialists are using, still the same tactics, divide and conquer. If they can infiltrate, your communities, and especially one thing that I've seen the past couple of years is your sense of self, like who you are, what your history is, your core identity. But one thing that's quite special is um, how the communities have stood, quite firmly on who they are. This is, the Eritrean people have gone through these for the past 100 years. You know, from divide and conquer, from the most local to international. Um, and in Sweden, especially, I see this old tactic that was especially used in the early 2010s, which media used to write articles, 10 a day about Eritrean communities, Eritrea itself, try to just bombard and make colored all of media uh, quite negative towards Eritrea. I even remember when journalists used to force themselves into simple national events just to get pictures that might reflect their narrative. But one thing I've quite seen is this, especially this changing of history, to especially towards the youth. I mean, when you're young, you're still in your development phase. You're still studying the past. You're a student of the past, and this whole changing of your historical background to try to uh, divide, I mean, within you, is quite a phenomenon that's been interesting, because I see how, especially as you said, because the Eritrea is an area where there is a lot of other conflicts that will, you know, have an impact on us. How those conflicts have been also exploited to try to question our identity. And it's interesting how the community still flourishes. It's quite evident every time we have communities celebrating our Independence Day. More and more youth are showing up, showing pride, because they feel that their identity is being attacked. Their past sacrifices are being diminished or minimalized. uh, and it's quite interesting how the youth itself, also using social media, are kind of fighting back.
I think, I mean, already we have a history, right, of struggle, of sacrifice, that because of the amount of sacrifice it took us first even to establish ourselves as a country,
Mm.
a country, 9 ethnic groups, two major religions, uh, you know, we know the cost of bringing that, right?
Mm.
There's not a family that has not, does not have like a freedom fighter or a martyr or somebody who had been, murdered in cold blood.
Yeah.
Also, during the since the time of Emperor Haile Selassie onto the Derg regime. And then even after independence, there was what, 7 years until the next conflict had erupted between Eritrea and Ethiopia because of the dispute about where the border was.
Mm.
I mean, we say that is a border dispute, but really it was just it was another imperial ambition
Mm.
that Ethiopia had to take major parts, if not all of Eritrea again, and they did that while we're on that topic, they did that through a lot of misinformation campaigns, right? By instilling or promoting false histories. This it's not even like ethnic divide. It's like it's even more like I think the best English word to use is like tribalism, but they're not trying. We're not. They're not trying to cause conflict between like actual tribes. You don't have this type of tribal, structure, as in the way at least they're trying to promote it. But it's always conquer, divide, conquer, divide, conquer, divide. But because of all this sacrifice and especially over the last 3 years too, the amount of disinformation and I wouldn't even call it propaganda. It really went too far. It really went too far where attempts to erase Eritrean identity, to deny Eritrean unity in all its diversity, mind you, of course, has definitely hit the nerve of a lot of people. You know, just last year with the violence that happened, everybody saw, especially here in Sweden, everybody saw it on the news. It was headlines. To think that they would be so bold to, attack people the way that they did, of course, then triggers another nerve. But yeah, the thing is that because so much sacrifice has been, made for us to really be able to call ourselves a country, despite all the imperial ambitions of Ethiopia, also certain Western nations, in their acts, in their attempts to divide and rule, not just Eritrea, but even the Horn of Africa, because they can profit from the conflict. They can, through conflict, they can then try to control resources and access. Um, that was there. This last year, though, things became more clear, even for myself. I've felt like I've really learned so much over the last few years, just observing how these mechanisms of disinformation and epistemic violence has tried to, uh, tried to make us feel ashamed about who we are.
Yeah.
It didn't start like just 3 years ago. This has been happening for in fact, it's happened even through our grandparents and great grandparents' times, right? uh, through the systematic dismantling of the Eritrean economy right after World War II with the British military administration, to make the argument that Eritrea could not be its own independent country because it couldn't support itself. One of the, if not the strongest economy, one of the most strongest economies in terms of factories, industries. They systematically dismantled that uh, so that Eritrea would be deemed as a country that could not sustain itself, knowing that it could definitely do that. Even our grandparents, our great grandparents went through this. We can go through all the steps. Even now, the young generation, they've taken up the torch. Let's say they've taken up the torch to make sure that all the sacrifices, all the progress that's happened in the past does not continue on for the future.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I it's quite interesting. I mean, compared to a couple of years ago, is the psychological impact of social media, not only on Eritreans abroad and within, but in different conflicts happening around the world. I mean, we're seeing the world being divided in different sides. Barely through the media, through like news. It's more on social media. I mean, platforms like Facebook or Twitter, where there is this hard line. It's not even it's facts that are not allowed to be contested. And we're seeing big international conflicts, and especially here in Europe, where it's one truth, you're not allowed to question it. How we're going towards a more harsher world in terms of what they expect you to believe and understand. there is the argument that social media has also made it possible for different arguments, but as we know, what gets pushed through on social media, it's for the highest bidder. Although we have quite a strong Eritrean present on all these platforms, and we get to see, different truth. There is always this higher agenda who can kind of control the numbers behind, the algorithm to try to push their narrative. We have so-called independent, freelancers who write about conflicts in our area, who deem themselves credible, and push through, and push narratives that they make up in the background to try to impact, a certain people, and skew and kind of, push up conflicts.
Yeah, I don't think it's the platforms necessarily. I don't think it's the social media that's the. I mean, social media is really just a tool.
Mm.
And of course, there is some people get like shadow banned versus others. Some are also quite clever in becoming like clickbait. They produce like clickbait of headlines, or and so they tend to get a lot of followers. But I think it's also more of a reflection of something that's been happening for a very long time, right? And that is a certain narratives, global narratives, discourses, right, that centers Europe and the West, and others, those who are not from or of the so-called center, right? Even when for colonization to have been as effective as it was, there were certain knowledge systems that were decimated, right? Almost made extinct, and other ones that replaced it to call the African, the indigenous person, the native, a savage, somebody that had to be colonized because they were savages and uneducated, and they didn't we could only use them as like we use our domestic animals, there's been these type of narratives, right? And so when you get that actor that is what we call me and others, we call them conflict entrepreneurs or conflict entrepreneurs. You have this one person, and they're not representing any real group of people, right? They're not representing an organization where they have a membership or elected, they don't carry any representation, and yet they're able to push this narrative. Why? Because it fits into this very, kind of colonial, capitalist, individualistic apparatus, right? That knowledge system. It's not just us, right? It's not something that just only happens here. It happens to all. It really, especially in the Horn of Africa. For each country, you can probably just easily list the top 5 or 10 people that are called on to give commentary on the news, or who's writing books that we know are completely inflicting and reproducing this kind of epistemic injustice. None of them are actually from the countries, right? They will have some puppets behind them, right?
Yeah.
But none of them are from there. They haven't really been there, for a long time. Definitely a few have been kicked out. We, because we're Eritreans, are more familiar with those in the Horn of Africa. But I know, you'll go to Francophone countries, I'm sure you can find the same ones, right?
Yeah.
When when the French were kicked out of Burkina Faso, for instance, of course, there's certain actors who are, particular actors too, right? They're the experts, and they're pushing that narrative. It's a narrative that tries to advance these type of imperialist Western ambitions, interests, but never the national interests or the diasporic interests of those who are actually from those countries.
Yeah. But do you think there is ways of kind of fighting back against these attempts?
There's always ways. If we want to bring it to, when it comes to the more like what we can do as individuals, right? If we bring it to the more personal, it is to always read everything critically. Everything. Read everything and read it critically, right? Of course, to have a historic understanding, to understand a little bit of history, some of these things I've already talked about, colonization and these type of things. That's also very important. But yeah, the first personal, more individual advice I would give is to read everything, and read it critically. Also, a lot of the sort of, especially the colonial, neo-colonial narrative really tries to, it pushes stereotypes, right?
Yeah.
And it pushes stereotypes that try to make those who are, not from the West or of the West, basically people that are, white, if I might say, right? It tries. It's always been a tool of a kind of psychological warfare that made people that were non-white think that they were inferior.
Mhm.
And with that type of understanding, I think we should always, look to our past, look to our, culture, traditions, and values, and feel some type of pride out of that, right?
Mhm.
It's not because all societies have like, they don't have, times where, you know, we wish we didn't make that type of mistake, or we wish that event didn't happen. Right? Uh, an example, when within the Eritrean liberation struggle, there was a brief, real like civil war between the Eritrean people, the Eritrean Liberation Front, the Eritrean People's Liberation Front. Yeah,
Yeah.
where yeah, yeah, we can look at that and think like, yeah, that was a dark time in history, but instead of using it to uh, uh, as a kind of a source of, I don't know, embarrassment or shame, we should be able to look at it and think like, that was unfortunate. We can learn.
From that, yeah.
We must learn from that,
Mhm.
right? Especially when it comes to any type of, divides. Try to create divides among, us as an Eritrean people. To bring it back home, like, us as an Eritrean people, as a diverse people. I
Mhm.
always use the 9 ethnic groups, 2 major religions, right? Uh, Past attempts where maybe some of our forefathers or foremothers, uh, might have been susceptible to that. We need to see that as a learning opportunity instead of feeling shame or something like this. And then, of course, when it comes to combating these false narratives, we should also be active on social media, in our friends group, and within our community, especially as young people today. We should be really playing a role in making sure that our younger siblings learn to feel pride, learn about their history, about their culture.
Mhm.
And we can do that by also being very active in our community, in these events, the national events, in the commemorations. Funkal, the commemoration of Operation Funkal is coming up in a few weeks. As young people, we should be the first to take the time, organize events to help others commemorate and learn about this. What had happened. For those who don't know, in February 1990 was the liberation. The Eritrean People's Liberation Front liberated the port city of Massawa. And just a few days afterwards, the Derg regime used this what you call MiG, the fighter jets, to carpet bomb uh, parts of Massawa we call batse, right? Especially as we call, yeah. I can get into the actual details of what happened, but yeah, like and we have also incredible, horrific images of that. It's very important for us to remember this very important part of our history. Let's make sure that this in the next few weeks we use this opportunity to educate ourselves, to educate our members of our community, especially the young ones, and to commemorate and remember something like this, just as a concrete example.
No, I think that's a great tips, definitely, and kind of a great way to finish today's episode. I saw time was running quite fast, but thank you, Rahel, for today, and I hope to see all of our viewers next week. And always remember, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Joined by
Fatawi,
Rahel,
And Nathnael.
and we are here to tell you that Dmtsi is back to be broadcasted every 2 weeks here on this channel. Please tune in, join us for our conversations. We look forward to having you.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and also give us feedback in the comment section.
don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And also, please give us feedback in the comment section.
like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to give us feedback in the comment section.
We will be broadcasting in both Swedish and English. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to give us feedback in the comment section.
بحال من كركور نغنيت شفا تماهير كابطمو عيس عالمنا نايم عمال بعزو مسي زيت غادالم يعبي فنتسكا نغرات فرزو من تسينا يلو تعايلي سرع تماغان تمرامل نعقان لازعقر نعقا يا إرترا نعقا فلتتي وتسكا زي برسنا يزلالم آبتي روحو عيكونن كتفتحو السماء تفر كواخبتي مسماري عصري إريتران أفويلا تعرفلو وكلو نفسا غيلا نمتوتا زمانات